Now, if I turn off the recording, will you remind me to start it?
Yeah.
Start.
Hugh, can you hear us?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Hi.
that's basically all the
You
information.
can hear us?
Yep, thank you.
For me to understand things.
We're using a bit of a different technology today.
Oh, I thought it was basically
I like
the
it.
graph you were doing for how many calls in what year and, okay,
So, I brought what I've done,
okay.
and just all look at it, you know. That's,
Marcus, you're the hero. I put myself in a meeting. If there's an emergency, Otherwise, I'm not here.
Um,
Okay?
Alright.
Thank you, sir. You are the hero MVP.
Oops.
Order.
Is that really from Dunkin' Donuts?
It is, it's a non-sweetened iced tea.
Yeah, but where does he get it?
I sent him down to, he either went to Sunderland or Belchertown. Yeah. I was gonna,
We need a cafe in this town.
I was gonna go, but I couldn't leave, so he went for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna see you. It's just- The only place is the Shutesbury Athletic Club, and I have to say.
I can't go there.
Cops going into the bar.
Yeah, I have to say, the first time I walked in there, I thought I was walking into someplace in Deliverance or something. There's these guys sitting around a table playing. Here, it's
That's not where it used to be when I was a kid. It was very different.
Yeah, I recognize them. I can't just go in there though, because one day I was looking for someone across the street to help them out with something, and they were like, Shutesbury Athletic Club. I was like, yeah, I see, I'm looking for somebody.
All right, I need you. Yeah, that's okay. We're doing, it was just for file share. So, I'm not sure why I can't get audio on my computer. It's on Becky's. It's, yes, Becky's. Becky, if I plug this in, I need, can yours use a speaker?
Yes,
Because we can't hear you, so I just want a speaker.
Thank you.
So it shouldn't have been easy feedback.
No, it's not feedback. I can hear it. Oh, maybe it's on mine. Hang on. You're muted. Your speakers are off.
But.
That's fine.
I don't have wafers, I have Linux operating system.
Oh, hold on. Can someone on Zoom say something for a moment?
Hello,
Hello.
testing. Hi.
we're just working on improving our audio.
All right.
It says failed to detect your microphone.
Did the microphone? Failed to detect the microphone. Oh, there's the feedback.
It's situations that it's removed. Yeah.
Okay.
Meeting law, this is not how you do it. This is really only a COVID thing.
All right. So I can hear you on mine.
This is still really COVID, not law. Now it's all over.
Becky, are you unmuted? So we're saying.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, mute it for. Hear the feedback. Okay, hang on. When we were having the thing, now we're supposed to be in person.
All right.
They won't.
The only problem is we can't
Okay.
record it.
I know. I'm just trying to get one of us working here. All right, I'm gonna try it on you and I'm gonna mute.
Well, because of the Delta. Yes.
Hang on, he's gonna identify this. Where's your speakers?
They're right here.
No, I mean, so when you put something in, it tells you when it acknowledges it.
So those are partly my concerns that I was bad at articulating when I was trying to.
How high does your audio go?
Exactly.
It was on 1/3, but this old screen.
That was sort of my thought too.
No, that's good. We want that. We want to be able to have them.
See people's
in
faces
there,
and
in
recognize
place.
them on the
Okay.
street. If
Okay.
you see them differently.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
after COVID, when people started taking their masks off and police were like, oh, you're Kristen, right? I'm like, you're Cheryl, right? Like, masks, hi, you know, like, you
Yep, it's an issue, for sure.
Can someone say something at the moment from the Zoom? Just anything, tell us a joke, dance around. Go ahead, Hugh.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight?
Excellent, we can hear you
Hi,
just
Joe.
fine.
Hi, thank you.
Can you hear us okay? Can all of you hear us okay? Thumbs
Yeah,
up.
and the room is a little echoey, but just realize that it's echoey.
Okay, I'm gonna attempt something then.
You're in a big room, so that's why.
Yeah, it's got some curtains.
Ooh,
Sorry. I think realizing that there's an echo, just slow our speech down slightly.
bingo.
Okay.
Actually, the echo's gone.
They hear, yeah.
Oh,
We aren't gonna hear the echo the same way they are. All right, so let's see. Ooh, now I'm hiding myself, so I'm gonna get it.
yeah, you have to move it. You either have to get close.
Yeah.
or
Well,
you-
we could turn it your way because
No,
I'm,
it's the camera, it's not, this is. the
right,
screen.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
this way more. If I move this way, we move this way. Yeah.
Or you move the camera back.
Look, there you are.
There we go. No, I'll lean into it when I speak.
Me too.
I'm gonna just put you, I'm gonna just turn it.
You're the same thing, you have to move. Yeah, well, that means that
Oh, now-
nobody on
now
this side is
Sharon,
gonna,
yeah.
yeah. And you have to move towards me, or you won't be in it either.
So slide down.
Or I could go sit with Susie, or
Oh,
you
no,
could go
that
sit
doesn't
with
matter.
Susie.
Oh, you're using that, so it doesn't matter where you are. Never mind.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. That's why we could turn it, as long as you're in the speaker.
I'll lean
Okay,
forward. I can hover on my chair.
all right. I think we're ready to go, but I don't see Mike.
Oh, yeah, he's there. Mike's there.
Oh, good.
I see him.
There's Mike.
Oh, what time is it? Is it?
It's
Oh, my goodness.
We're 5 minutes late.
Mm. One second. Make sure this is. I need to organize this thing.
Okay.
Okay. Because I'm going to need that too. All right, okay. Okay. All right, shall we call our meeting to order? Yes? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna, let's look at the agenda real quick. Tonight for our agenda, we have, we're gonna review the agenda now. We have public comment, discuss the minute taking, approve the minutes from Susie from the last time. And then we'll go into some of the work that we had talked about. Sergeant Burgess will give us an overview and some information. Cheryl will give us an update on the police log spreadsheet. Susie will give us some updated information about the survey research that she did. And Mike Vinsky will give us history of past attempts to look at the police department, and then we'll do some planning for next steps. Does that sound okay with everybody? Are we good with that agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Good, all right. And Hugh is joining us from New Salem. He's looking in at how we're going about our project and reviewing and watching and what information we're gathering. So welcome, Hugh, to our meeting. And I see Susan Rice is also here as a visitor. Hi, Susan.
And Kate is here.
Okay, so let's do public comment at the moment. Does anyone?
Before we do, just for Susie, are you taking minutes again? Thank you.
You did.
And we'll
a
have, I think
fantastic
we
job
can,
last time.
we can resolve an issue to get you doing it too, the
Sue-
next time.
Yeah, Susie did our
I'll talk
minutes
to her
for
after the
anyone.
meeting.
Okay.
For anyone that doesn't remember, Susie did her minutes the last time, so she's volunteered this time. We'll work on other solutions. Thank you, Susan. Okay. So anyone here in the room or on Zoom have a public comment they'd like to share with the group, with our study group? Either raise your hand or visually raise your hand. Sergeant Burgess?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for understanding the postponement of the last meeting. When I do get to my portion of things, I'll explain a little bit more, but thank you all for understanding.
Thank you, Kristen.
And maybe we should go around and introduce ourselves.
I think that's a good idea. So why don't we take a moment, Becky just suggested that we go around and introduce ourselves so you'll know who we are. And those that are visiting us on Zoom will also know who we are. So I'll start. My name is Melissa Makepeace O'Neill, and I'm on this as the chair of the working group, but also one of the select board members here in Shutesbury.
I'm Sergeant Kristen Burgess. I am with the police department here in Shutesbury, and I am also the OIC.
Susie Mosier, a member of the Shutesbury Finance Committee.
Cheryl Hayden, I live in Shutesbury, and I was interested in doing this.
Wonderful. Becky Torres, Town Administrator.
And I'll call on people in order. Mike Inskeep.
Mike Finsky, I'm a Shutesbury resident and a member of the police study group.
Bridget.
Hey there, Bridget Murphy. I am a resident in Shutesbury and I work with Susan Rice and Mary Jo. We have a little collaborative with 2 more people. We've been meeting for the last year to connect around building a bridge between the citizens and the police. So I'm happy to be here observing. Thank you.
Mary Jo.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo, and I'm an interested resident and member of the committee.
Melody.
Oh, I think she's frozen.
Oh, Melody, we think you're frozen. I'll move on to.
Oh, she moved.
Oh, there she is. Melody, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Melody Chartier. I'm on the Shutesbury Finance Committee and representing the Personnel Committee.
Susan.
I'm Susan Rice, and Bridget spoke well about our little cohort's interest in being a support to how this police study group moves forward. And I'm impressed with how careful we are moving forward.
Randy. Would you like to introduce yourself? Randy? Louder. Randy, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
He might have technical difficulty,
Yeah,
maybe.
we see that Randy Gordon is also a New Salem Select Board member.
And he's the chair of the
Chair.
select board in New Salem.
Okay, well, thank you all for introducing yourself.
Hello,
Randy, go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Randy. I'm making dinner and I'm listening to your meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on to discussing minute taking. I know this was something that we had kind of touched on in our last meeting. And there were concerns as someone's taking minutes, it's hard for them to participate fully in the meeting. So we were exploring other ideas for doing so. And Susie took the minutes at that meeting, and she's graciously said she would take the minutes at this meeting. Thank you, Susie. We had discussed, Becky and I, another way of doing this. We do record our meetings, so we could go back to the Zoom and feasibly take minutes from that to fill in if someone wanted to participate.
But yeah, there is some transcription software that I will be purchasing. So the recordings can be done personally on this computer, and then I can share them with Cheryl to do the minutes.
I'll do the editing, yes.
Yes, to do the editing. What we couldn't do was use the Zoom transcripts because of open meeting law. They were a public record, and we already had a situation with another committee where the typos in the transcript from Zoom was taken literally, and we had open meeting law complaints. So we are avoiding that route, and we think we have another solution for the next meeting.
Was it the dragon?
Yes. Naturally,
Dragon, naturally speaking.
dragon naturally speaking, yeah.
Okay, so we will, does anybody else have any thoughts about minute taking while we're on the topic? Those are the things we're gonna try out.
I just want to say that I thought the minutes from last time were terrific. I was impressed.
They were very good. We have very talented minute takers, I will fully admit. I, as a select board member, be lost without the wonderful minutes that we made. Go ahead, Michael. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm having a little bit of a trouble hearing the group that's in the town hall there. Sometimes it's really loud, sometimes it's really soft. So I'm not quite sure how to make that better or anything like that, but I'm missing bits and pieces of the conversation here.
Mike, is it changing from person to person or is it overall?
For me, it's like from person to person, and it just I don't know if, you know, when you speak, you've got to be at a microphone or what, you know, what the issue is. Part of it is the echoing in the room and everything, but it's a little difficult to catch all the conversation.
Mike, hang on one second. We're gonna adjust things real quick here. We're just trying out some technology. I apologize if anyone's getting nauseous.
Right, as you speak right now, Melissa, you can barely hear you.
You can hear me?
Barely.
No,
No.
Because I'm behind the microphone.
She's behind the microphone. She's asking everyone to just be patient for one moment. She is changing things up to make it a better audible situation for us all. And she apologizes for the making anyone nauseous as we're rocking. I apologize. Okay. Let's try this. I'm gonna shrink this down. I'm gonna bring it to us closer. You might be in our screen and we might not be able to see you guys as clearly, but I think this might work better. We're gonna pass it to the people who are talking. Can you hear better? Mike, can you hear better?
Not especially.
Oh, and now we've got.
Feedback to my computer.
Hang on, I'm muted, right? Where's mine?
Yeah, you're muted.
I'm muted.
Maybe if I turn mine like this.
Okay, can you hear us now? Is that better?
It's a little weak, but let me up my volume here. All right, why don't we press on and see how it goes?
One moment. Want to try one other thing. Becky, I'm gonna have you pop this in your screen.
How do I pop it in my
Okay,
screen?
hang on, I'm gonna take the camera down a second. It's a USB port. Just stick it in your USB.
I need a attachment that I don't have with me.
Okay, all right. Here,
Wait, maybe this one.
can you make mine the co-host?
You are the co-host.
Okay, and you have to remain the host, all right?
I could make you the host.
Pass it off to this one for right now. Just to see if this,
Pass it on
the host.
to you.
Yeah. Okay. Just to see if this works. I'm not why I'm hearing that on my screen. I think it was workable.
It was better before.
It was way better. Okay, we'll put it back down.
We'll just run it.
Okay. going on
You
here.
do.
Yeah, my
Well-
speakers, it's my speakers.
Could you make me something, a
Oh,
host
you're not anything right now?
of something?
I'm sorry.
When I made you host, I'm sorry.
Do each of you at Town Hall have a computer?
It's right there.
So I'm thinking if you each were
We could
like Zooming and had yourself muted unless you were speaking, that it would eliminate the feedback issue and it would make the speech clearer for the rest of us to hear.
My
Okay,
speakers are
let's,
on. Well, then we just need to get that feedback. Yeah, I'm doing it. How's that? Is that better for everybody?
can anybody hear me speak? Everybody's saying yes.
Okay, so my computer was interfering. I apologize.
I can hear. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
Becky is loud. Melissa, you're kind of soft.
Okay, I'll talk louder when it comes to mine. Can you all
Okay.
hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's my cheerleading voice.
Yeah.
You're the microphone. Okay. All right, let's get back to that. Sorry for that, guys. All right, so I'm sorry. So was there any other comments about minutes that we wanted to cover? Suggestions, anything like that?
So it sounds like that at the end of the meeting, we would be clear about who will be doing the next set.
Yeah, I'll work
Yes.
with Cheryl after the meeting and make sure
It might
I
not
can
just be-
send her my file.
And it might not just be Cheryl.
It could go around to
Yeah.
anyone.
I'm happy to do editing.
It's not a problem. All right, so we'll try that path with our minutes. All right, let's move on to approving the minutes that we have from the last meeting. So to do this, for anyone who's new, we do have to vote on them. And so do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd, 2021?
I think we
Melanie?
shouldn't we be asking if there were any?
That comes
That
after
comes
you
after.
open the motion.
Okay.
Melody, you had a question? You can leave your.
No, I just have a minor point. My name is misspelled. It's Melody, not IE.
We can correct that, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else that has, did someone second the motion?
I second it.
Oh, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any edits that they saw in those minutes?
Yes, I have some.
Okay. Do you want to walk us through them, Mike?
Okay. The part where we're talking about the review of the charge. There's basically so far been 3 different versions of the charge. There was a draft version that we were working off last meeting. There's what I consider the official charge, which is the one that was mailed to candidates who are interested in being on the committee. And now there's a summary of the charge in the minutes. So it's and they're all a little bit different. So it's confusing to me and more than likely to people who are going to be reading these in the future as to what the charge was and everything. So I would suggest either just putting a copy of the charge into the minutes or attach it at the end, something like that, and delete the section that we have here that has the summary of the charge.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we, I think the summary is maybe a good reference point for quick reading through, and then just reference that it's attached. How does anybody else feel about that?
Can you say that again, Melissa?
I leave what's there, but then reference the, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera. Reference the minutes attached to reference the charge attached to these minutes. In that. That way, the summary can be slightly different anyway. A summary can sometimes is.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine with me.
That works, okay. Thanks, Mike, for catching that, the difference. I appreciate it.
One other thing I have is that I had volunteered to do the review of the shared chief process or whatever, and that there's no mention of that in the minutes. If that could be added, I'd appreciate that. And then the next to the last paragraph, it starts with "in the meantime." I'm not quite sure why "in the meantime" is there. It doesn't seem to make sense.
The last paragraph.
Like the second to the last paragraph.
Oh, I think like in the meantime, that was between now and the next meeting.
Okay, it's not clear to me what that is reference to. That's my comment.
Can we make a sentence that says between now and the next, yeah, in the next meeting, committee members would make the make Shutesbury specific email addresses. I'm fine with the next sentence, but just between now and the next meeting. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Works for me.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Does anybody else have any edits that they'd like to propose or share? No? Okay. So all in favor of approving the minutes, and we'll do a roll call because we have someone.
Well, approve them as amended.
As amended, yeah, approve them as amended. So let me go through the Zoom first. Melody.
Chartier, aye.
Mike.
Vinsky, aye.
Mary Jo.
Johnson, I.
Excellent. Yeah. Cheryl.
Cheryl, aye.
Susie.
Aye.
Burgess, aye. Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you for great minutes. Yeah. Okay, so moving on the agenda, we will go to updates. And this is where we had asked Sergeant Burgess to give us an overview of the police department and report on community policing.
Okay,
So would you like to do that?
yes, I would.
Okay.
Becky, if you would turn that a little bit, just make sure we can hear me perfectly. Okay, so I'm really hoping that everyone is able to hear me clearly. I do have a choral voice. I have a commanding voice, and I have a cheerleading voice. Just ask me which one you want, and I'll give it to you. I do want to reiterate to everyone that I'm very grateful that everyone understood why we needed to postpone the last meeting. And I just want to touch on that for just a moment, because in an overview of what a police department does, the events that took place were pretty significant. So the police department was called to a medical call where the dispatch explained to me that a male party was struck by a garbage truck. And that's all the information I had. Injuries unknown. I rely a lot on my intuition, and my intuition bells were ringing. So I know that I saw Melody real quick that day as she was pulling up, and I think she could attest to the fact that I was running and had a pretty serious look on my face. When I got to the scene, it was a scene that I never wish anyone to ever have to see. I do know some history of some of the folks that are on, and they have seen some things, but this is something that I hope no one ever has to see. Needless to say, the gentleman that was run over by the garbage truck is doing well. I spoke to him this morning. In fact, I went to go see him per his request at his rehab center. He did allow me to let you know that he's in good spirits. He did lose a portion of his leg below the knee. He told me that I could share that information. And he also made mention with the doctor that was standing there, who also attested to this, that he wouldn't be alive today had we not shown up as quickly as we did. He lost quite a bit of blood and was going into shock. After something like that happens, that's very serious. We were looking at an amputation. It's a very serious call for everyone to see. It's something that even first responders have difficulty with when they go to a scene like that, especially because we know the man so well. Every Wednesday, I had conversation with him. We joked around. He called on me in a police capacity multiple times, and I assisted him. And sometimes we just sat and chit-chatted in between what he needed to do for his job. So seeing someone that I know in that manner was difficult. The fire department also recognizes that this is a difficult situation to witness and deal with. So in those serious cases, we often will do a defusing or a debriefing where we call out other agencies that are part of a team that debrief and defuse throughout our county, and they come in and we review what happened, and they are there as peers and supporters. And if we need chaplains or anything like that, it's imperative that we do that immediately, and that is for the well-being of all first responders that are on scene. So I'm sure you can understand the importance of doing it so quickly. And again, I thank you. Melody, I'm sorry I didn't say hi, but it was one of those days. I do remember seeing you. So I'd like to now do go over an overview, and with everyone's permission, I'd like to make this slightly interactive. So I may ask a question. Please raise your hand if you would like to answer, and I'll call upon you to answer the question. If you don't want to speak to what I'm saying or answer a question, just simply don't raise your hands and you won't be called upon. Okay, I want to start by saying officers can be police officers can be called upon and respond to literally anything. And we have been called to literally anything. These calls can range from a young child calling 911 to assist him with his homework, to very serious calls of an unattended death. We can be called for squirrel issues. We can be called for, somebody who is having a bad day and just wants to talk to somebody. That being said, although we can be called for just about anything, and we are called for just literally anything, we may not have the expertise to deal with that situation, but we certainly are given tools in order to make sure that the person calling gets to who they need to get to help them with that situation. It could be another agency. It could be assistance with behavioral sciences. It could be assistance with therapies. And we do our very best to never leave somebody without having a plan in place. We have 5 officers currently working for the police department. The way that the officers are designed right now is myself as the OIC/sergeant/person in charge / a lot of things. We have Officer Marcus Johansson. He is my second. He is a full-time officer, and he has quite a bit of responsibility. 2 of his responsibilities that I have given him is the evidence room. That is where we collect any evidence, any property to crimes, or anything that we need to hold on to while in an investigation or thereafter. It is a very specific situation that needs to be dealt with by 1 to 2 people only, and no one else is permitted in the room almost ever. So evidence room, and he is also in charge of keeping track of our ammunition, because that's in the evidence room. And it's also a really important job to know how much we have for trainings and on hand for things. After that, we have Officer Taylor Boudry, Officer Megan Gallo, Officer Linda Newcomb. They all have different jobs, and those jobs vary daily depending on what I need them to do. Sometimes Their job is to go through files and organize. Sometimes those jobs are to do a cleaning at the station. Sometimes those jobs are to follow up with certain expertise that they have. Our daily tasks. We advise, as soon as we are ready to start our shift, we advise dispatch, our control center, that we are on duty. We can do that either on our radio, our portable radio, on our radio in the station, through our cell phones, or even through our computer system, which is IMC. IMC is our portal for all things log entries, all things reports, and all things CAD, which is our dispatch. We can see every officer that is working in our county through the IMC. We can see what their duty is that day, and we can see all calls that they are on. That is important because our surrounding towns may be on a call that we should be ready to respond to assist them in. So that's important. Officers respond to emails and calls that have been left from their previous shift. They're responsible for checking their cruiser and making sure their particular cruiser that they're using that day is in working order with no deficiencies or no new deficiencies, and that all lights and sirens are working appropriately. Each officer is in charge of checking their own equipment. That's the equipment that you see an officer wearing on their person. And I don't think I need to go over that today. If anyone needs me to, we can do that at the end of this. But all equipment, making sure all equipment is in working order, making sure they have all required equipment. They begin their patrols after they have done these items, unless they are called to something immediately, which oftentimes happens. They will go on patrol unless their supervisor has given them a particular assignment. Sometimes they're assigned things immediately. Officer Johansson walked into the station today, and I had an assignment for him immediately. There was a resident in town who filed a complaint and needed an officer to show up. And so I was sending Officer Johansson down to that when the resident was going to be back at their house. We attend to civil complaint issues, meaning sometimes people will call us up. They'll tell us that they loaned a piece of their yard equipment to a friend and that friend has not returned it. We will take the report, we will log the entry to that, and then we will then advise them that this is a civil issue, that they need to go to court to get either their equipment back or whatever they're looking to do. We respond to animal complaints in coordination with our animal control officer, Nancy Long. Oftentimes, we're the first on scene for animal calls, lost dogs. We've had some birds of prey that needed some assistance. We've called Tom Riccardi for assistance in that manner. We do get dogs wandering down the street most of the time. They're really not far from home. They're just checking things out. So we've really lucked out with that. We log who we come across as far as the dogs. So we know if we come across them again, we know exactly where to bring them home. We will do speed enforcement on our patrols and throughout town. Speed enforcement is where we go to a certain area where we have found that there is quite a few complaints in regards to vehicles speeding, and we will either sit and monitor the traffic going by to gain knowledge of how fast the vehicles are going, or we will utilize our radar immediately. Sometimes we estimate, and sometimes we use our radars. We have handheld radar, and we have mounted radar in the cruisers, both forward and rear. So we are able to, if we are parked on the side of the road and someone is coming from behind, if we have initiated our mounted rear radar, we are able to determine how fast that vehicle is going. With our handheld radar, we're able to use that in any direction, and it works just as well as the mounted radar. All officers are certified in radar before they start using the radar alone and by themselves. We just turned on the fan and things are flying. Okay. Okay, so serious incidents and calls to service. The first one I want to review are domestic calls. Here's where it gets interactive. Someone please briefly tell me what they think a domestic call is. Please raise your hand. Someone raise, thank you. Cheryl.
You think of it as being a husband and wife or partners, and one of them hits the other. I think that's this sort of standard idea of what a domestic would be.
Okay, so just in case we weren't really hearing that clearly, Cheryl had stated that she typically thinks of a husband and wife, and one of them has hit the other. So that's a great start. Domestic situations, domestic violence situations can be anyone living in the house. It can be any family member, any relationship, any child, or any roommate. And it all depends upon the relationship status of the people. If it does not fall under domestic because people are not related, and someone just came over and visited the house and there was a fight, and they're just friends with no romantic history, they're not related, it is then not a domestic situation. But what we have found in responding to our domestic situations, we have brothers and brothers, brothers and sisters, sisters and sisters. We have aunts and uncles, caregivers. We have people that are guardians. We have mothers, mothers, fathers, fathers, mother, father, wife, husband, husband, wife. We have cousins, and we have all kinds of romantic partners, past and present. So that's what determines basic determination of what domestic violence is. So when we say domestic on a piece of paper, and the calls that I gave Cheryl, the list of calls that we receive, when you see domestic, it's not specified to whom, but you'll now know that that is a family relationship or a romantic relationship or a past romantic relationship. These are the most serious calls that we have to respond to. And the reason is because most of the time, these calls take place inside a home. It's in a home that we may never have been to, and we don't know what's inside the home. But if you think about what's inside your home, you'll then start to understand why it's a safety issue for officers to respond to domestic violence. We already have a very heightened emotional situation happening, and then you insert a police officer to try and cool it. If you're in your kitchen, what do you have in your kitchen?
Knives, rolling pins, cast iron pans.
That's right. All kinds of weapons. Furniture can go flying. Lamps can go flying, and they do. So these are very serious calls that we respond to. We respond in a very heightened way because we need to be ready for just about anything.
And there's dogs.
And there's dogs, as Cheryl pointed out, yes. So in that manner, we are very, very careful as how we respond to that. I'd like to tell and share with you a domestic violence situation without giving names or addresses. I will give you the overall scenario of what happened just about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I came into work and I was checking my calls, as I stated we often do, checking my emails and checking phone messages. I received a phone message from a young woman, I believed she was a young woman from her voice, who said, this is what the message said. I just had an argument with my boyfriend. It got physical. I need someone to call me immediately. Click. Now, I know most of you know me, and you know that I have a very big heart. My heart dropped at that moment because I don't have a name, I don't have a phone number, and I don't know who I need to call back. But she sounded upset. I started going through the call directory to try and find out who it was. I had 3 potential people because 3 people called me within minutes of each other and left me messages. I started calling the call log, each name, asking for the person's name. She did asking for the person who called me just recently in regards to an argument. After the 2 calls, the last call, I made touch with the female, who then told me she was on her way to Westfield to see her mother and explained to me that her boyfriend beat her severely. After talking with her for about 5 minutes, I had asked her to pull over on the side of the road. After talking with her for 5 minutes, I determined that she should no longer be driving. I asked her to call her mother to meet with her, and I would go and meet with them wherever they were. When I got to where they were, we met at the Westfield Police Station. Westfield Police Department allowed us to come in. When I met with this woman and her mother, it was obvious that she had been in a physical altercation. She continued to share with me more information and show me pictures of past abuse. We went to the boyfriend's place that he was staying after the interview, and he looked at me and said, "Yes, I did that, and I will never say I didn't, and I will never apologize." So he was arrested. We made sure that he had the comforts he needed during that hot day. He was given Gatorade. And while he was detained in handcuffs, I made sure I myself actually took the Gatorade to him, to his mouth, to give him Gatorade. He was given all of the necessary things that he needed and phone calls. He was taken to the county jail where he would stay until he made bail. It doesn't end there. You would think that's it. You would think that that is the end. I now interviewed someone. I determined that there was abuse. I arrested the person. I'm done. I'm not done. I now have to follow up with the woman to make sure that she has everything she needs if she decides to get a restraining order. At that point, I will have families call me 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times asking me, how do I go to court? What should I say? Who do I represent? How do I represent what happened? At that point, I often give them advocates, witness advocates, so they can meet with the witness advocates. I play a mediator for that. I will have them sometimes say, I don't want a restraining order. Call the next day, say they do. Change their mind, come back. And every time, every officer needs to make sure that we are taking into what is happening with their emotions. And we need to make sure that we are giving them what they need and still being patient at the same time. This particular call took me 4 days. 4 days of emails, phone calls, visits, and follow-ups. All the while, I need to make sure that the person that was arrested has everything they need as well, because they have rights as well. These are tough situations, and they're not just one and done. So when you see domestic, often later you'll see follow-up investigation, or you'll see assist citizen, or you'll see
Court.
You'll see many different things. All of those calls are related to domestic violence. I'll move on from there because it's a really tough thing to talk about. And I'm not sure if everyone's really wanting me to keep going. Disturbance calls. So a disturbance call could literally be anything. It could be a call from a neighbor that dogs are barking too much. It could be a call from a neighbor that they think someone's fighting. It could be a call from a neighbor that music is being played too loud. It could be someone moving furniture around and it sounds as if furniture is being thrown. Sometimes furniture is being thrown. Disturbance calls are fluid. They can turn into a domestic violence. They can turn into a fight in progress. They can turn into a medical emergency, and they're all very fluid. It differs from a domestic just because it's not always a call for people that are living together or past relationships or relatives that are having an issue. We can get called to fight in progress. I was called to a fight in progress not too long ago. It was just people having a heated discussion. So when you think of fight in progress, where did your head go when I said that, friends?
Yes.
So it's not always a fist fight or a brawl in the front yard, although that has happened. We respond to medical emergencies. Police officers are almost always the first ones on scene. And that is because we are already in uniform, we are already in our vehicle that we need to be in, and we are already on the road almost always. So that's why we're the first ones on scene. I don't need to wait for anyone else. I can just go straight to that medical scene. And because I am a first responder, I can treat the patients on scene to the best of my ability, experience, and knowledge until EMS, paramedics, and EMTs arrive. We respond to serious crashes, accidents, motor vehicle accidents. These are tricky as well, and they're very fluid. Oftentimes, when there's a motor vehicle accident, not everyone's pulled off to the side of the road. A lot of times, the accident happens in the road and everyone's still in the road. When I arrive on scene, I need to quickly assess to make sure that everyone is doing all right medically, that everyone's okay. I need to make sure that I have traffic under control, and if we can move the vehicles, we move the vehicles. I have to get the information to dispatch on what vehicles were involved and which operators were involved. I need to determine if this was purely an accident or somebody perhaps was under the influence. And I need to make those determinations pretty quickly because there's traffic moving around me. And I need to first and foremost make sure that the people involved are safe, and then myself, that I am safe. We investigate. In larger departments, they have the detective bureaus, they have the traffic units, they have the truck units, they have community policing units. We are all encapsulated in everything. We are detectives, we are investigators, we do it all. So an investigation is anything from a break-in and a past break-in. It could be that someone broke a sign, someone stole a sign. These are things that have been happening. Vandalism, this could be sexual assault. This could be domestic violence. This could be disturbances. The gamut is wild on this one. Officers' responsibilities on investigations, particularly when crimes are involved. I like to always remind myself and remind the officers a quote that I saw in a movie once. It stuck with me about 6 years ago. It is just as important to exonerate an innocent person as it is to convict a guilty one. And I remind myself that in every call that I have involving any kind of crime, because I don't want to jump to conclusions and I don't want to ruin somebody's day or life based on me trying to move quickly through something to get finished with it. It's a true and large responsibility for officers. We collect evidence, and sometimes these are ever evolving and very fluid in nature. Follow-ups are a large part of what we do. As I already touched on, we follow up on domestic situations. One of the ways that we keep the peace, and make no mistake, I believe I'm a peace officer. One of the ways that we keep the peace is by checking in with people. So if we've had a domestic situation that perhaps was a verbal domestic, does anyone know what a verbal domestic is on screen?
They don't read mysteries.
Would somebody like to answer me on screen? How about you, Melody? What is a verbal domestic?
I would guess that it would be just sort of, yelling.
You're hired. Verbal domestics are just that. They're verbal. There's no physicality in nature. So everything is yelling, and sometimes it's really not nice yelling, but it is just yelling. So sometimes when it's a verbal domestic, we like to check back in with people. I often tell them when I am on scene and we're finishing up what we're doing, hey, would it be okay if I called you in a couple of days to check in and see how things are going? Most people are very happy with that, and they like me to check in. We stay in touch. We drive by the areas that we've had issues in the past more frequently to make sure we don't see or hear anything that isn't appropriate. And we always tell everyone that we are involved with to follow up with us as much as they want. Emails, phone calls, you name it. We assist with court information more than people realize. We're semi-proficient in court documents and policy. We have a lot of the paperwork necessary to bring to court, and we will advocate for people when it's necessary with court documentation. It's an interesting phenomenon. When I worked in the court system myself as a court officer in Springfield District Court, I found that many people did not know what was expected in court, how court was going to help them, how court was going to go again. They had no idea what was happening in court, and it's a very daunting experience. A professor once told me, court buildings are built in a manner in which to intimidate on purpose. And I get it, because most court buildings are quite intimidating. And if the building isn't intimidating, the interior is certainly intimidating. And the courtroom itself is intimidating. You have a magistrate or a judge, and the judge is wearing their robes, sitting higher than you, over a pedestal, talking down to you. And it is a very large and open experience. So we often will walk through that experience with people so they understand what's going to happen in court. I always tell people I have full transparency. If I do have to arrest somebody and I do have to bring them to court, I tell them exactly what is going to happen, exactly what is expected of them. And then they feel a little bit more at peace. There are times where there are warrants put out. Bonus points if anyone knows what a warrant is. Cheryl.
I read a lot of mysteries. What can I say?
She said she reads a lot of mystery.
A warrant is a legal piece of paper that allows you to either arrest someone or search a property or something like that.
And that is mandated by the court. So a judge has issued that warrant. A judge is now telling me to do A, B, C, D, E, F. So if a judge issues a warrant to have a person appear in court, what they're asking me to do is make that person appear in court. We have a little bit of discernment when it comes to these warrants. If it is a straight warrant, it is likely that after they appear in court, they are then going to be, or after they're picked up by the police, they will get bailed out if it's past court hours. If it's a default warrant, it is likely that that person failed to go to court a few times. And if they get picked up by the police, they will likely not be bailed out until they are brought in front of the judge, either by the police or by jail deputies. So when a straight warrant comes across my desk, and it's a young person, this happened, and it is for Chapter 90 violation, which is a motor vehicle violation. So basically, they were speeding, and they failed to answer their citation by paying it, or they failed to answer their citation by asking to go in front of the judge, and they failed to respond to any court letters, now the judge says, I want to see this person in front of me. And it's a straight warrant to start. I then have the opportunity, and usually this is what I do. If I know the person, or I know a way to get a hold of that person, I will then contact them and try to help them understand what they need to do and have me understand why they have not done that yet. There was a young gentleman in town, came across my desk that he was supposed to go to court. He had a straight warrant for Chapter 90 for motor vehicle violation. It was a speeding violation. I knew who it was. I called him up and I asked him, what's going on? I have this. Are you aware of it? His answer to me was, I'm sort of aware of it. That's okay, I'll take it. I'm sort of aware of it, but I don't know what to do. Am I gonna go to jail? So what people do is they think the worst and they try to put their head in the sand like an ostrich and hope everything passes them by. So I explained to him that he needs to go to the court. He needs to tell the officer at the front door that he has a warrant and he needs to see the judge. The judge is going to bring him into the courtroom. They're going to discuss why he didn't show up. They're going to discuss his violations, and they're going to figure out a plan. And that's what happened. So it took a couple times to get him to understand, a couple of different violations to get him to understand he can trust the system if he follows what the judge is asking him to do. So that's something that's super important to me, giving education in the courts. Because how do you know what happens in the court if you've A, never been, or B, had a bad experience in the past? We provide a way for people to have a Zoom conference with the court. So this past pandemic, I don't know if anyone heard about it. Yeah. This past pandemic, courts went into Zoom. And so they would hold court sessions on a Zoom conference as we are now. The judge would be on his computer. The district attorneys would be on their computer. The party that was the defendant would be on their computer. I found that I didn't realize how many people didn't have means to do this. So I provided ways for them to make sure that they arrived at court via Zoom. Sometimes that was bringing my computer to them. Sometimes that was meeting them up here and having them utilize my phone for court. Sometimes that was making a way for them to get to the court and sit in a special room on a computer that they provided. Those are the things that we figure out, because if we don't figure them out, who's going to? They'll end up back in the warrant system. That's exactly what happens. We do report writing. We document everything in a professional manner, understanding that our documents have the possibility and the power to go to the highest Supreme Court. I tell the officers as they're writing the report, imagine that your document, your report is going to go to the highest court in the United States. And what will that Supreme Court think of your document? We document in a way that we're painting a picture so that someone sitting reading a report can understand fully what took place. Sometimes report writing can take hours. Depending upon the call that you've been to, you need to be very specific on everything that happened. On good days, we have about 4 paragraphs of a report on a good day. On a really intense report, it could be 5 or more pages. We respond to roadway safety. We respond to hazards on the road. We respond to erratic operator calls. This is an interesting one. A civilian can call in to dispatch and say that they are behind an erratic operator. So if anyone would hear erratic operator, and I'm going to ask somebody on the screen to answer this time, what does erratic operator mean to you? Yes, Mary Jo, thank you for raising your hand.
Yeah, I've done one of these. Like I'm driving on the highway behind somebody that I think might be impaired in some way. They're driving slowly, they're on the edge of the road, they're weaving in and out of traffic, something like that.
That's great. So weaving in and out of traffic, high rates of speed, going too slow, riding the fog line, the white line on the side of the road, not able to maintain lanes, heading over the double yellow lines, riding too closely on somebody. These are all things that we could get called to. Now, it's an interesting situation because a civilian is determining what they believe is erratic operation. We could literally come onto the scene and now not see anything. So we are then going to evaluate that witness, and do we think that witness has good cause and good nature to call? And most of the time we do stop the vehicle if we have enough information and we've made it to the area in time. We do stop and we question what's going on. When we luck out, we get to see that the operator is driving in the manner in which the caller stated that they were. One of the determinations that we use to evaluate a witness or someone calling is, do they give their name? Do they give the location? Are they clear on the license plate if they can be, or a description of the car? And do they give their phone number as a callback? Or are they just saying something and hanging up immediately? That's one determination. I'll tell you, it's not the determination. I almost always will go look for the car, because I too have been in my own vehicle and witnessed some things as well. We collect data on roadways. If we're out on a road and we see that there's conditions that the highway department or the fire department need to be aware of, we communicate those conditions. And as I stated in the very beginning, we often will collect data on vehicles in the area and the rate of speed they're going. One thing that's very frustrating for our residents in town is when they call me to a roadway. We'll use West Pelham as an example. And I happen to go up to West Pelham and I sit there for an hour and a half and I collect data. And I've got the average, the mean speed is 45 miles an hour. It's very frustrating for people because sometimes it's time of day. Sometimes it's just a manner in which people are that day. Sometimes it's dependent upon the weather. I know I'm not the only one. When it's beautiful out, I'm turning up my radio and having a good time. I'm not saying I speed. But I'm also not saying I'm perfect. So that's something that we do. And there's only been one time where we were able to talk to a resident who said, that car, for instance, that's coming down is going 55. And when I was on the radar, the car was going 56. It hardly ever happens that way. But I would say he's an incredible estimator. And I told him he was hired as well. So that is my lengthy, brief overview of what the department does. But I really honestly could have you all sit here until the weekend is through and I could explain the intricate details of the things that we do in the department. And I encourage questions, because it's important to get the questions so that I know where people's thought pattern is in curiosity of what we do. So if anyone has any questions, I would love that. I know I was going to supply you all with a report on community policing, but I felt if I did that as well, I would be sitting here and speaking for hours. And so I'm going to ask if it's okay if we move that to the next meeting, and it will be a outline with an oral report and examples of community policing. One thing I want to get your brains thinking though in community policing. When do you think community policing started? Like really started, like that was the word.
Oh, that was the
Oh,
word.
that's a recent term, yeah.
It's recent.
If you think recent is in 3 decades, started 30 years ago. That word community policing was 30 years ago. I'll be speaking more about that when we do the community policing, but I just think that's a really fun fact. So that's it for me for now.
I have a question, and feel free to say it's none of my business. I'm just curious as to what kinds of background you and the other officers have, what your training is, and why you decided to do policing.
Okay, well, we all have various backgrounds. I am, because of, I've spent a little bit more time on this earth than the other officers. I have some more life experience, we'll say. I am not afraid to admit my age. I'm 49 in October. I'm very proud of it. And I think that I'm proud of it because I have seen a lot and I have done a lot. I have worked in many different capacities. I've worked with children with behavioral problems and behavioral management in the school system. I've worked with adults with disabilities and traumatic brain injuries. I've roofed houses. That's usually in the summer and it's not fun.
Hired.
I've done construction work and I've painted. I'm a fitness instructor still. I'm a yoga instructor still. I have 2 adult children who are 23 and 27 years old. My 23-year-old is, I'm sorry, she just turned 24. Okay, 24, and she's getting married in November, just a little. So I've done lots of different jobs. I've worked in a toy shop. Does anyone remember when KB was still around? I worked in KB Toys. I worked in the medical field. When I was in Detroit, I was an EMT in the center and the heart of Detroit. That was back when you didn't really need a lot to be an EMT. I worked as a medical assistant primarily though at St. Joseph's Mercy Hospital. I worked at different family practices and for different physicians. I was a phlebotomist. I did x-rays. Back then, you didn't have to be specified as an x-ray tech. They just sent you in and baptism by fire, boom, you're an x-ray tech. I worked for a cardiologist doing non-stress tests. The length of it goes on and on. I myself have the part-time police academy. I went in 2016, or I graduated in 2016. It was from 2015 to 2016. It is a lengthy academy of 6 months. The only items that were lacking in that were the physical and the EVOC, which is learning how to drive erratically to avoid crashes and things as a police officer. And I, at the time, had the exact same firearms training, DT training, legal training, legal updates training, Chapter 90 training, all of the same. Marcus is a graduate of the full-time academy. He went to the SPA. It is the most elite academy that we have in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And Marcus, you know what, I back up. Why did I want to become a police officer? I've wanted to be a police officer since I was in my 20s, my early 20s. I became a single mom and I did not want to do that to my children. That's why I left being an EMT in Detroit. I didn't want to do that. But I did always want to do that because I wanted to make a serious difference in the world. And because I consider myself a very empathic person, I knew that I would be taking people very seriously during the most difficult times of their life. And that's when we're usually in front of people. Marcus wanted to become a police officer because he also wanted to make a difference. He comes from a family where his father was military. I come from a military family, although I wasn't in the military. But Marcus comes from a military family as well. And he wanted to make a difference and he wanted to help people. That is what you're going to consistently hear from people. So Taylor Boudry Taylor grew up in a family. She won't mind me sharing this. She talks about it often. Taylor grew up in a family where things were kind of difficult, and sometimes the police were called to help the family, and she wanted to be that for somebody. Megan Gallo, she grew up in the area. She actually grew up here. One of the areas that she grew up here was Shutesbury. She lives in Leverett right now. She grew up on January Hills. She comes from a family that is of the medical field. She knew she wanted to help people in that capacity, but not in the medical field. Her brother became a firefighter, and she decided that she wanted to become a police officer so she could uphold the law and also help people. That's the consistent, is the people that are in this field are people that want to help people. And typically we all have an experience of something that happened in our lives that made us decide, I want to be either on the other side of things, or I want to be on that side of things that can truly make a difference.
Thank you.
Linda, you forgot Linda.
Linda Newcomb. Oh,
Don't forget her.
Linda, if you're on, I'm sorry. Linda Newcomb is so important to me, and I apologize that I left her out. Linda currently is mostly doing details, so the road jobs, you'll see her out on the road, but she is also coordinating with me for trainings for the officers, and she responds to just about any scene I need her to respond to if I feel that it's going to be a lengthy scene or her talents could be used. Linda is a retiree of the Amherst Police Department after 30 years of service. So her knowledge and experience are incredibly important, and they are everything to me. She has more energy than most 20-year-olds I know. And I actually called her. We had a missing person in town, and I knew that she would be beneficial in this area to speak to the husband. And I called her. She came right to the scene, and she did what I needed her to do, and using her talents in that manner. So yes, Linda is super important. And she just stopped by the other day so we could review some things she's going to help me with next week. Any other questions? Melody?
Yeah, real quick, I don't want to belabor anything. So when you have an investigation like that affects everybody in town, like the mailbox vandalism,
Yes.
do you do the police sort of let everybody know where we are with that? Because that's not just affecting one or two families, it's pretty much everybody in town.
Yes, thank you, Melody. So, so frustrating, this mailbox vandalism. We never did receive any witnesses or have any camera footage, so it's very difficult. I believe I sent out, Becky, if you'll help me remember, at least 2 notices regarding what happened to the entire community, and I utilized the town announce email system for that. When we don't make any headway, but we don't want to close it, it's considered an open investigation, and I have it as an open investigation currently, so there's not much to update. But when people call and ask me or email me, I will provide them with that. I don't know where to draw the line, and emailing once a week, still nothing, guys. Yeah, it's very frustrating. However, just a side note on that, I do have some people that installed some camera footage, and I'm working very closely with the state police on the overnight shifts to have them be looking into things. So.
I have a question, Kristen.
Yes, Susie.
One of the concerns is about the ability for a department in a small town to respond to events as they happen. And so you talked about erratic drivers, and I'm sure there's some others. Is there how do you experience that? And are there compensating ideas of how to help that?
I guess I need you to elaborate a little bit more on the concerns to respond.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the concerns about our response, so could you elaborate on the concern about that?
So if you have a call from a citizen about an erratic driver, it may be, I'm not sure how many hours we're still covering, the department's covering, and you might be in one section of town, so there's the communication stuff. How do you cover, how are you able to cover with your staff and the different demands of the staff?
I really appreciate that call, because, or that question, thank you. We're passing this around because it's easier with the mic. I really appreciate that question because I failed to let you know that our officers work from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now my shift is the 7 to 3 shift, Monday through Friday. And then the officers fill all the other shifts. Marcus fills the Tuesday through Saturday, usually 3 to 11 shift. He alternates on Saturdays. So sometimes he's 7 to 3 on Saturdays and sometimes he's 3 to 11. And then Taylor and Megan Gallo alternate the other shifts as needed. So we are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday right now. It's not perfect because we have.
You're still down a full-time position.
Yes, we are still down a full-time position. So we're doing the very best we have with what Becky refers to as a skeleton crew. If anyone calls out or anyone becomes ill or anyone has their own life emergency, we have to adjust and move around. I have myself covered to make things happen. So in response to, say, erratic drivers, let's say I'm at the lake and I'm getting a call that there's an erratic driver on 202. I then ask dispatch, what direction are they heading, north or south? And then I ask dispatch to please alert the surrounding agencies of the erratic driver because I'm going to be at the lake and I will likely not make it out to 202 in time. That is something that happens in any department everywhere. As far as responses to calls where it's a stationary call, nobody is moving. We have a very good response time. We take in consideration if we're at the lake and there's a call at the highest point of Pelham Hill or West Pelham or out on 202, we take into account that that is a distance. Depending on the call, we may ask a neighboring agency to make their way there as well if they can get there faster, depending on the nature of the call. And if we don't need to do that, we turn our lights and sirens on. We do go at a higher rate of speed, but I will say that our officers are very good at taking into consideration what they are responding to and how fast they're responding to it, because it's most important that we and the people around us are safe in the moment. It's a really intense balance of making sure we're going fast enough to get to you, but not so fast where something could happen. And I tell the officers every single time, because I've seen this before. If you are going in a manner in which you are unsafe and you can't control it and something happens to you, everything stops and now it's directed in your direction. And you've now taken the direction away. So we always make sure that we're responding appropriately. But we do call on other agencies if we need to. I'm pretty impressed with our response time.
And so do you respond to other towns as well?
Oh,
Other
very
town
much
calls?
so. So she asked if we respond to other towns. Yes, we do. That's assist other agency in the call log. And we do quite a bit of that, actually. Leverick will call us to assist them for different calls to service, depending on the nature of the call. We do not like to go to a domestic violence situation by ourselves. We need to make sure that we are safe and we have backup. So if we do not have 2 officers working in town, we ask that somebody from an abutting town or a trooper, if they're in the area, respond with us, because that's officer safety. So we have responded to New Salem, our New Salem friends, if you're still on. We've responded to New Salem to assist the officers. I was down there recently for an unattended that happened actually at the Quabbin, and the state troopers had taken over the scene. But I went down to make sure that the officer that was working had supervisory support, which is really important, because when the state troopers come to a scene and they take the scene, we are still in cooperation. It's a unified job, even though they have all of the really nice tools and things. It's still unified. And we want to make sure that the officer on the scene, if not already a supervisor, has that support to make sure that they are also taking part, and they also know what is happening, and making sure that it is unfolding properly, and making sure they have everything that they need. So I assisted down with that with the approval of Chief Joe Camden. And we've gone to motor vehicle accidents. And we just recently went to a suspicious vehicle that was down in the town. It sounded concerning to the party that called. Officer Johansson and I were available. We made our way down there and determined that it was, although appearing suspicious, everything was on the up and up. We often, can I just add, Susie, that the state troopers sometimes will ask us to assist them with things as well. So we have a very good relationship with them. And I love that we do, but they sometimes will even ask us to assist in certain things. I have some networking that I have done, and one of the troopers had to do an investigation in our town, reached out to me and asked me to be with them for the investigation. It's technically something they don't have to do. It's definitely something that should be done, but they wanted me actually completely involved in all of it. So that's nice. Did that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Hi, Mary Jo.
Hi. So I'm kind of curious about communication between you and the state police, particularly as relates to incidents that might happen not on Monday to Friday between 7 and 11. Like, how does that work in terms of your knowledge of it, your documentation of it, and follow-up?
That is a phenomenal question, and it's one that I wish would be better, but I'll tell you what we're doing now. I'm not sure what happened in the past, but this is how I like to do things. When an incident happens in town, in the hours that the Shutesbury Police Department is not working, the immediate call goes to our control center, Shelburne Control Dispatch. Dispatch takes the initial call. So now we have a log of that call. That happens always. Then it gets put out to the barracks, and the state troopers will then respond. So the unfortunate part is that the log I have that I can review through my IMC that I explained to you is our portal for all things logs, data, and reports. All I can see is that there was a call and it was referred to the state police. So I then contact the state police, and I either request that the desk trooper, sergeant, lieutenant, otherwise, give me a briefing on that call, or they put me in touch with the trooper who was at the call, or email me the entirety of the report regarding the call. Because this question's great. There's follow-up that needs to happen, and the state police doesn't always follow up the way that we like to. Just recently, we had a call. It came in at 1:14 in the morning. It was not determined by dispatch that they need to call me to let me know about it, but it was a motor vehicle accident. It was on the level of accidents, pretty serious, but not serious bodily injury or death. It wasn't that. It was just a bad accident. I came in the next morning. I reviewed the log. I called the state police and I asked them to give me a review of what happened and what they did. So they're very good about that. They actually love when I call and they love that I like to keep in communication with them. So it's pretty easy. You just have to make the extra step because it's not in the log.
So the point. So the point is, if you didn't make that extra step, you would never have a clue.
Correct. That's correct. If I didn't make that extra step, all we would know is at 1:14 in the morning, and I'm guessing on the time, it's somewhere at 1 o'clock in the morning, there was a car accident on such and such a road, minimal detail of what happened, who responded for fire, and that's it. I don't know what the trooper decided to do, if anything. Was there investigation? Was there citations written? Was, anything of police nature done? I wouldn't know that if I didn't make the phone call.
So in that case.
Sorry, pass the stick here.
So in that case, do you think the information systems will evolve so that the state trooper reports will be made available to the pertinent towns, just the way medical information has learned to be more online and available to multiple agencies?
I would certainly like to see that happen. I would like to see a better communication system in the future. I haven't heard any language to that or any knowledge to that. I don't have any knowledge to that. I would like to see it happen. For now, we're going to just do the old-fashioned pick up the phone and say, hey. And the dispatchers do a phenomenal job, but once it's handed over to state police, they utilize their own dispatch. That should be said. That's why it's not followed through.
Well, I think, here's just a comment. I think that for now, without an electronic system accessible for everybody, I think you reaching out to the state police builds relationships with some of those that cover the area too, right? So you get to, networking is the word that comes to mind, although I'm not sure that's an appropriate word.
So over the years that I've been doing this, I've been able to network deeply with the Massachusetts State Police to the point where when we had our serious accident where with the garbage truck, the troopers that responded all knew me from when I worked in the Berkshires. So I feel like I've done a pretty decent job networking to the point where they're coming this way now. I think that's helpful. And I think it's really good to network. They also know that we have a really solid department here. When they come on scene, they don't immediately just take over. They talk to us and they communicate with us and they say, what do you need from us? Because they know we have a really smart department. I'm very proud of that. It's not anything that I can necessarily show you. It's just that when a trooper comes on scene and they maybe have interacted with me before or spoken to me through email or on the phone, they come up and they're like, oh, hey, Sarge, this is what I was thinking. What were you thinking? So it then becomes more collaborative. Does that
That's the
explain
right word.
everything, Mary Jo?
Collaborative is the right word.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. This is has been very helpful, let me just say, in terms of getting a context for understanding what we need to know.
I'm so glad. I wanted to make sure I gave the appropriate information to you all without going too much and not too little. It's a balance. Does anyone have another question? Susie.
So I would say that there are people in town that might have experienced previous departments where that reciprocal relationship with the state police wasn't obvious. So I think part of today's meeting is to say, this is where we are. And it is based somewhat on your personality, your skills, and where you are putting the way you're developing the department, which is also coming from direction of the select board. But I think it's going to be important for people to, when they make their, when they think about their perceptions of the department, to recognize that the department changes. It would be great if the communication from the state was maybe done more automatically as a sense of shared responsibility, but you've made that happen, and that's helpful. But when we talk about gathering information from citizens, some have been here through multiple departments, and so they need to, this exercise lets us know where we are now, and we need to take that into account.
I'll add that with our new post system and our post committee, post council that we have, and the regulations that are coming down from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there are some rules that are coming down in regards to police departments and how things are, what is expected and how things are handled. So that is information that everyone should look forward to. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be where most departments or all departments in various subjects are going to have the same exact policies and things. So that's extremely helpful. It's going to be the same across the board for a lot of things. So I think that that's helpful. And the era that we are coming into in the policing world is calling for this kind of policing. It's calling for collaboration. It's calling for transparency. And and that's what I like. I like to be completely transparent in nature so that there's never a question, and there's never a question of my integrity or my officer's integrity. I ask them to be extremely transparent as well. So yeah. Another question? No. Yes, Mary Jo.
Okay, so I have been following Black Lives Matter. I've been following, dare I say it, defund the police, abolish police stuff. And I'm definitely not, obviously not proposing that for Shutesbury, but a lot of the people who are advocating alternative policing or something other than what we have right now talk quite a bit about what public safety means and what safety means for each individual person. And the topics that tend to come up have to do with homelessness. They have to do with financial insecurity. They have to do with food insecurity. They have to do with domestic violence to some extent. But I guess what I'm wondering is are there ways in which Shutesbury police come across information like that? Like, are you the people that get called when people are in like really stressful situations that could potentially lead to them acting out in some way? And do you have the resources to help people to deal with that or help the town to respond to those kinds of situations?
Okay, so that's a really wide sort of scope of things. Domestic violence, lack of food, lack of income, all of these things. It's wide, but it's all connected. Yes, we do have resources, lots of resources. And if we don't have or know about the resources, we have connections that may have those resources. One thing that I am very proud of and that we will be working toward as a whole in the unit of this department is the crisis training, team training. I just went to that over the beginning of the summer, and it is a training, a very in-depth training that offers tools, it offers cards, phone numbers, addresses to be able to reach out to people in different areas and arenas to get people the help that they need if we recognize that there's a potential need. Let me give you an example. I have been dealing with a situation in town that it has been very difficult for a family. I'm not gonna go into the whys, but it's been a very difficult situation for this particular family. I have been helping them for a year and a half and more intently over the past few months. One thing that has come across is that there is a lack of income because through the pandemic, jobs were eliminated or people were laid off or people were let go, restaurants closed, etc. People were having trouble with income. This particular family was having trouble with income. Now, I can't pull a job out of thin air like I'd love to, but I was able to give them the resources they needed to reach out to be able to get temporary income, to be able to keep their house and their family sustained. I was able to give them resources to get immediate food into the home. Sometimes that's we as officers bringing groceries. I'll tell you that it's not something I like to talk about because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to fluff myself up, but I think that's something maybe important for everybody to know. I do often, not often, but I do sometimes do that. And it's because I can, I have the means. So if they need immediate food and I have food, I'm going to bring it. And then I'm going to work very diligently to make sure that they have the resources to have prolonged food and the prolonged, income that they need to be able to do that. I've set people up with government agencies to assist in rental income, mortgage income, and things of this nature. We also have CSO, which is a crisis organization in our county. It is just like BHN in Hampden County. And I do referrals of families to CSO regularly, or I often call CSO and ask them to reach out to families. I always have full transparency. I tell the families that I'm going to be doing that, because what they can offer is somebody, a therapist, to come to the home or a crisis technician to come to the home and work with them immediately. DCF, we often think of DCF as somebody who comes in and investigates abuse. They do more than that. They also are a resource for getting therapy into the home, for getting people proper medical care with the proper physician and specialist that is needed. So with the family's knowledge, that's something I do because people don't know to ask for that. So as a crisis team member, I am somebody that can respond to a crisis or a mental health situation, and I can start to assess what resources we need to provide to these people.
Thanks.
I've got a question kind of follow on to that.
Sure, Mike.
So Kristen, it sounds like what you're saying is that not only is the police department into the law enforcement aspect of police department, but you're also into the social needs aspect. And I'm wondering if there isn't a better avenue to provide those social needs things than the police department. And Melissa, we got you on the select board. Is this, I mean, the other side of this is how many particular cases of homelessness, financial insecurity, food insecurity, domestic violence are is the town handling? And if it's, you know, if it's overwhelming for the police department, maybe it's time for, you know, a different organization to get involved. And maybe that's something that the select board needs to be looking at. So I'm kind of, I guess what I'm saying is this, I mean, you're handling these situations. Is it, you know, a handful here and there, or is it something that's taken up your full-time, you know, attention? And if so, does it need to be transferred to a different agency?
Great question, Mike. So as I stated, I don't handle it from beginning to end, but also as I stated earlier today, we're first responders, not just to medical calls, but to people. So we are usually the first one that kind of notices something. If not, sometimes the school does, sometimes the fire department does. But because we have so many resources, we are the ones that can then delve in and offer that help. I think your question was, you know, interesting, but I want to respond like this. And I'm going to speak for the entire department. People are our business. People are our business. We are people in our nature. Everything we do is about people. So I think to say or to insinuate that it's too much for the police department, maybe we should ask the people that the police department has helped if they appreciated that, or maybe somebody else should deal with it. Because my job is to make sure people don't fall through the system and that they get the help that they need. And that's why we have binders of resources. Please don't mistake what I said. I'm not sitting there being their therapist. I'm sitting there letting them vent to me, and then I am getting them a therapist if that's what they want, to talk to, or a crisis technician or something like that, for sure.
And to answer the select board part, Mike, I think that some of this, and Kristen, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, that this falls under some parts of community policing, because like Kristen had said earlier, some of the calls start with a call to the police department, and there's a point of privacy too that the person may want dealing with a police officer, because there's rules of privacy there. So I think the wider part of it falls under the community policing part, and having a group of people in the department that is able to identify maybe something that's going on before it's an issue, and helping people in that way. Because the select board has wanted the police department, the last two select boards have wanted the police department to focus more on the community policing aspect. The thing that I personally think about is situations where you could call a civilian in, a counselor in, but is that environment safe for them to go into, especially in a domestic? You could bring in another service and it's not safe for them to be there until it's been assessed. So there's also those things we have to think about as we think about other agencies. You know, there's times where these are not safe situations, and just to simply defer simply to defer is just, we need to have that first element there, and often it's the police department. But the community policing is part of what the select board is focused on with the last, really seriously with the last hires. So yeah.
I also, just to add in, don't think that police officers should only be out there to give tickets, to respond to difficult crime situations, and to only be there for law enforcement. I think police officers should be peace officers and be guardians of their people. There's a warrior mentality of the past when it comes to police officers. What is now coming into the forefront of policing is a guardian mentality. We are the guardians of the people that the select board puts us in charge of. I take it very seriously. And if somebody reaches out to me and asks to speak to me, I am going to do everything I can to treat that whole person and the whole family, and not just superficially what I can see. And I don't think that that takes up too much of my time. I think I have plenty of time to make sure that I am taking care of all of my responsibilities.
Well, no, Krista, I appreciate that. I'm just, you know, I'm here to learn what the police department is doing, and it just, you know, it seems like the police department's the catch-all for everything that no one else in town, no other agency, no other, you know, government entity is going to do.
No, Mike,
So-
I told you that we are the start sometimes, but then the other agencies come in. We start it and then we refer out, or we get the resources started.
Right, no, I understand that, and it, you know, as it's all gonna come down to, again, what the town can afford as far as what our police department is gonna cost us and everything. So, you know, and that ties in a lot with the coverage that you guys do right now, basically Monday through Friday, 7 to 11 p.m. Okay, so you know, that is that coverage, there's a set cost for doing that coverage.
Yes.
And I would assume you would prefer to do 24/7 coverage, because that way.
Please don't assume anything, but I'll tell you, if the need were there, I would bring the need forward. But the coverage from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. was set, Monday through Friday was set long before I got here. It's just that we haven't had the coverage.
25 years.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean,
I was just informed. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's been in place for 3 decades. The 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday.
right, and you know, why is it, you know, why has that been set like that? And I think this group is been formed to look at you know, that as one specific area and everything like that. So I'm just, you know, I'm not trying to be troublesome here or anything like that, but I'm just trying to get a feel for what the police department feels they need to do to provide the service that they think they need to do to the town, and what the expectation from people in town is for that service. And that's all I'm trying to figure out at this
I
point.
get it. I don't think you're being troublesome. I tell everyone all the time, go ahead and throw it at me. Nothing's going to rattle me. But I'll tell you, Cheryl wants to speak, and so does Susie. Okay, so I'm going to just let them.
I think before we get into this kind of discussion, we need to actually look at what the police department does. And that's what I'm going to be addressing in the next few minutes. So rather than continue this discussion, we should wait until we have more information.
Susie? Okay. She changed her mind.
Okay, all right. Was there any other questions for Kristen? Because I know Cheryl now wants to give us her update on some of the information she has. Any more? No? No? Anyone? Okay.
Thank everyone for your time. I know I went on and on.
Thank you,
Thank
Kristen.
you.
It was terrific.
Cheryl, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I sent an email to all of the other police group people who are not here because I have documents to look at. So if you didn't get it, let us know and I'll try again. Pass those around. This page is just sort of an overview page, and then this,
Do you want me to, I can share screen if you email them. Share the screen.
I emailed them to everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm in my work email. That was my problem. Thank you.
Cheryl, I didn't get any documents.
Nor did I.
Did you just get an email from me in the last few minutes?
I'm not looking at my email.
Yes.
I think we're good. Melissa got the email and she's gonna put it up on. Oh, in the last few minutes.
I just sent them out because I brought enough for everybody, thinking
I
everybody.
didn't get one, Cheryl, and I just looked at my email.
It'll take time.
Are you on the
Yeah.
list, the police list?
Yeah.
Then you should get it.
I also haven't received it.
It'll just take time.
I
Sometimes
think
email
it's-
takes time.
Yeah, and if she sent it from down here, I'm not sure which, it could be really slow. From down
And,
here,
yeah,
so she was
thi-
on a different.
This
I
is a
have
big,
the solution.
this
Go
is a
ahead.
big attachment.
No, I have the solution, at least for this one. Just continue. I'll pop it up.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna scan it. You want me to work on other pages? No, you
No,
do.
no, I got it. Go ahead.
Okay, let's start with the single page thing that says Shutesbury Police Activity. And this is sort of what I came up with after going through, entering all the data for the last 7 years, I think you sent me.
Yes.
And manipulating it. And I'll go through some of that too, but this is sort of an overall view. Initially, if you look at what's happened to the workload over time from 2015 to, well, there wasn't a total one for 2021 yet, but 2015 through 2020, the workload has doubled essentially over those 6 years. And when we look at the activities themselves, we'll see that some activities, there was nothing entered for the first 3 years, and then some entered later, or so I'm guessing that either the activities that the police department is doing has changed, or that they're same activities, they're just coded differently. And that's something I need to talk with you about. Yeah.
And there've been 3 chiefs or 3 people in charge.
That shouldn't
and
affect this.
I'll tell you
Okay.
that sometimes the way we enter calls has changed,
Yes.
and we'll
Yeah.
discuss that.
Yeah, I need to talk that with you. Also, I've seen that some activities are quite stable over time, but specific activities have varied a lot. And one of them, the one that's varied, I think, the most, is administration. So I need to find out what you mean by administration and why it wasn't put in there 6 years ago. Another one is assistance, although that hasn't changed a whole lot.
What?
Investigation has actually gone down over those 7 years, 6.5 years. So we need to talk
How did
about
that
why
happen?
that's happened too.
Okay,
So you're not. are you-
Motor vehicle stuff has gone from 380 in 2015 to 941 in 2019.
guessing that's staffing.
Interesting. We need to talk about that. And
Could I take just a quick break? Mike, if you look on your participant list, somehow you have ended up the host.
We're not sure how, but I need to share my screen. You need to
Could-
either allow me to share my screen or.
Yeah, so you could
Ask Rosa.
either make me the host and Melissa co-host so that we can share the screen and get the document up.
This is fun.
It's under
All
more.
right.
it's worked better than I
You
expected.
did
Okay,
it.
Becky, you're the host.
You did it. Great. Thank you, Mike. Sorry to interrupt. I appreciate
All
it.
right, don't do that again to me.
I'll try not.
how that
We don't know how it happened.
Can you take it back, Cheryl, to motor vehicle
Okay,
and go from there?
where's Melissa?
Okay. So motor vehicle has gone from 318 in 2015 to 941 in 2019, and then back down to 585 in 2020. So
Can
there must
everybody
be a
on
reason.
screen see that?
I can answer that super quick. Why it went down in 2020, we
Yeah.
had a pandemic and we were limited as to who we were interacting with. We were ordered by our supervisor in the beginning of 2020 to lessen interactions in motor vehicle violations unless they were egregious.
Okay,
there was a
that makes
reason.
sense. And then prevention has also gone from 26.
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me? can everybody hear me? Has gone from 26 in 2015 to 924 in 2019. That may be because I've put the wrong different things under prevention, but anyway, we need to talk about whether these are changes in activity or changes in coding. And I think in some cases that's probably part of it.
And also changes in chief for what gets reported.
Yes, absolutely. That's gonna be a
That's true.
huge one. I'll explain.
And we need to understand whether you report every single thing you do in a day, or if there are different things that you report. We need to understand that. But anyway, also some general questions that came out of my sort of trawling through all of this data. I don't even know what the units are that you have here. Are they man hours? Are they daily activity?
On this spreadsheet.
Where are we
on a spreadsheet.
talking about units?
Well,
meaning-
like for instance, under activity,
Yes,
for abandoned 911 abandoned call, there's 11. Now that I can figure out. It's a call. You got 11 calls that were abandoned.
yes.
But then, for instance, under administrative, in 2018, there were 4, and in 2019, there were 160. Is that 4 times somebody did it? Is that 4 man hours?
It is. It's so whoever was in 2018 was not logging the times that they did administrative duties.
No, that's not my question.
Yeah.
What does that 4 represent? Is that
How many times they
It's a number of
logged
times.
an administrative duty.
Okay.
We'll call administration on here, for lack of a better term, we're gonna call it an incident.
Okay, I'm not,
So
this
all of them
question,
can be incidences.
right,
Yep.
this
So-
question is not specific to admin. This question is
yep.
for the whole thing.
Every time you see a number, that's like how many incidents
And it
happened.
doesn't matter how long it took.
No.
It's not shown.
Got it.
No,
So we have no way of knowing
well,
how many hours go into things.
no, you could. We can dive into that. I can get how long each thing
Okay.
takes. It's just gonna
That's-
be
Well, wait,
quite in depth.
That's
Yeah,
something
we'll
that you and I
decide
need to
whether-
talk about
yeah,
later.
whether it needs to be done. But what we know now is these numbers are incidents.
Yes.
Okay, my next question, how do these activities come to the police department? Because there are not very many 911 calls.
Well, 911 calls specifically come to the police department through dispatch. So that means a 911 call went to dispatch. Dispatch then
Right.
called us to it.
Do we have dispatch here? Who is dispatch?
It's in Shelburne Falls.
Okay.
So they are with the state.
It's a regional.
They're
Okay.
state police barracks.
Okay.
They're the region. But just incidentally, the supervisor there did say he will come and speak to what he does if that's necessary.
Okay, that was one of my major questions was how to come, because I was pretty sure we didn't have a 911 center here.
No, we don't.
Yeah. Okay, so how did these other activities come to your attention?
Either through dispatch or we log them ourselves through that IMC portal I explained about. So administrative, let's just go to that one. It's a weird one. That is anything office task related.
No, you're misunderstanding my question.
No, I'm not. I'm getting there.
You have plenty, there are plenty of other things besides, let's forget administrative.
Okay.
Like animal complaint or be on the lookout or assist citizen. How do those things come to you?
Either through the dispatch center in Shelburne Falls.
Yeah, that's very few of them.
Or, yeah, that could be a regular call.
They're not
It doesn't have to be a
So
911 call.
they called the police department
Yeah.
phone number here.
No,
People.
no. Dispatch has 2 numbers, 911 emergency and the non-emergency line to dispatch, 625-8200. Those are 2 options to get a hold of dispatch.
Okay,
Or they can call the station
Mhm.
or they can email.
okay.
So how do we come about getting that information? Either through dispatch or we as officers come across a situation ourselves. Maybe somebody comes into the station
Okay.
and we need to assist them. We log that ourselves. We have the ability to, which is why some stuff, as you can see, wasn't getting logged, even though we're not talking about it anymore.
Okay. So my next question was how many man hours are scheduled weekly? We've already talked about
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Some of the activities, for instance, detail requests, I assume that's when there's work being done on a road and something like that. Are those paid for by our department or, okay, that's what I thought.
Does anyone need me to go into that?
Do we need any?
Understanding details? Okay, moving on.
And then there was cruiser maintenance.
Yes.
Do you really have to do your own cruiser maintenance?
Okay, so that is a very broad term
Who
for
do you
many,
think
many
would do it?
things.
I would think you take it to a
Oh,
garage.
they do,
and-
that's what it is.
No,
okay.
but not only. We have only one term in our log CAD for the IMC logins to log that we are checking the tires, that we are fueling our cruiser, that we are washing our cruiser. So it's a very broad, cruiser maintenance is like everything and anything
Okay.
cruisers.
Okay,
Yeah, or shopping for a cruiser.
And it is taking them to get the tires rotated, oil changes, inspections, repairs,
Flat
flat
tire
tires,
just happened.
which is a headache.
okay. Those
Yes.
those were sort of my general questions.
Yes.
And there was, well, actually that question is, are there some activities that are logged in here that are done by anybody other than a police officer? Or is this log just what's done by police officers?
The logs are only done by Shelburne Control Dispatch or police
Okay.
officers.
Okay. All right, let's look at
Okay, let me bring that up.
the spreadsheet, this spreadsheet that I promised.
Okay.
And then as I was going through what she sent me, I was like, really, did I
I'm
promise
gonna
to do
bring
this?
it up.
She's
No, actually,
coming up with a
I-
bunch of good stuff, isn't she?
I found it very interesting. and
I'm
very illuminating.
also finding this very interesting. Yeah.
So what I did,
Download this one. I'm getting it ready on the screen, hold on.
okay, so what I did was to enter everything that was done in the years of 2015 to 2021 through July, or actually a little bit into August. And so what the spreadsheet shows is the activities for the years, for each year. And then at the end, the parts that's been tagged on, or if I have a question about anything. So I didn't even try to do percentages because, why, I had a good reason. Because what I have here is I've sort of grouped the different codes into what made sense to me, and you and I need to talk about that too.
Okay.
Because I'm sure not everything that I did really makes sense. And I didn't include a whole bunch of them at the end that I had no idea what they were. And
Okay.
so doing percentages doesn't make any sense until we get them into everything into some kind of grouping.
Okay.
But if you look at the first page, we've got a grouping of 911 calls. But if you look across the years, you can see there really aren't very many of them. And it hasn't really varied very much over the years. So that, you know, the whole 911 thing is pretty stable. And to me, surprisingly small amount of what actually goes on in the police department.
So can I just add that it is unfortunate that there are many other times where 911 should have been used and wasn't used.
So it was an emergency, but people got in touch with you some other way.
Some other way.
And
yeah.
by the way, between 11 and 7 a.m., if someone calls 911, does the state police respond to that?
So when someone calls when a Shutesbury police officer is not on shift,
Yeah.
it goes to our Shelburne Control Dispatch, and then they send it to the state police dispatch.
Okay. All right. The next is a whole bunch of different administrative stuff.
You did it.
And yes.
Okay, now they can see
It's not
the
great, I
spreadsheet.
apologize for but it's not perfect it's a little blurred, but sounds good.
The next is a whole bunch of administrative stuff, and I don't want to talk about that now because we need to spend some time on that.
Okay.
Then there's a whole bunch of animal things. Well, there's only 2 animal things, but again, that's something that hasn't been a lot and it hasn't changed much over the years.
I do want to say each one of these causes a great headache for the select board
Really?
and
The
other
animals?
people in town. So it might not look much to you, but it only takes like 1 or 2 dogs to cause havoc.
So imagine though, 34 times we responded to some kind of animal complaint or lost dog or aggressive, 34 times.
So do you have, there is an animal officer in town?
We have an animal officer assigned to the town.
Mhm.
And what happens is when we get an animal complaint, we initiate and then we call her and work together with her.
Okay. Then there's 2 that I call apprehension or retention of person, which were the bolos and escort and transport. I'm not sure that those are even appropriate to be together, but they're not very many anyway. Then there were a whole bunch of assistances. That's what they did, which I didn't even spell correctly, but anyway.
It's a draft.
So, and I do have some questions about this, but that's something we can talk about later. But it is interesting to me that a fair amount of what you do is helping someone, like in a lockout or a missing person or a runaway. I mean, those aren't crimes,
No,
but they're public safety. Exactly, they're public safety, then they're just helping people, which is, I think is terrific. Then there's crime against person, which again, there aren't very many. That's the next page. Can we?
Yeah,
I got
she's
Okay.
there. She's
I'm
on.
on, yeah.
Good. There aren't very many, and it's been very stable, and it's really nice to see that aren't very many.
amen.
But then you look at crime, property crime.
Mhm.
I was actually surprised to see this much here. It's, you know, I've lived in Shutesbury for 3 years now, and the only thing I've noticed is that people's signs in their yards get pulled up and thrown away. I mean, that's really about it, but
Stolen.
clearly that's not about it because there's a fair amount here.
Yes.
There's fire. Do you respond every time there's a fire alarm?
So fire alarms, we can often respond to. Alarms in general, yes. Fire alarms, typically, the fire department will respond to the fire alarm, but we are also going because if there is a situation there, we are going to be needed in some capacity, whether it's shutting roads down, moving traffic, or organizing.
I just remember when I lived in Shirley, I had a chimney fire and I called the fire department, and within about 30 seconds, of course, I wasn't very far from the center of town, but no, about 30 seconds, there were 6 fire trucks and 2 police cars in front of my house.
Yes.
For a chimney fire.
Yes.
That we had actually put out already.
Our job, typically when we're called to something like a chimney fire, even if it's under control or not under control, the police are making sure that the apparatus for the fire department is safe, that the fire department is safe going in and out, and we are working traffic.
Yeah. Okay, fraud and scam, there's been almost none of that. Kind of surprised me to see that there were any, because I know the couple of times that I've run into scams or fraud on email, I send it to the Attorney General.
So I had an experience of fraud. I'll give you a personal example. I'm from the bank, and they required me to file a police report with
They
the
do.
police so that I could go forward with them.
Really?
So I had to
Because
file it with them.
I've had a couple with my bank and they didn't.
Yeah, this was above a certain amount. This
It-
was not a little small little.
It's
charge.
also recommended.
Interesting. Because I had one, somebody from Africa got put like $5,000 on my account, and the bank, I called the bank and they said, oh yeah, we get those African things all the time. We'll just put it back in your account.
Yeah, so I had, my bank required me to go and file it.
It's interesting. Okay. I was surprised that there's very little in the way of what I just called guns. I didn't know what else to call it. A few shots fired, mostly licensing in the last 3 years. Now I know that now anyway, I don't know if it's been this way in the past, but I know that now if somebody wants to get a license, they have to go through their local police department.
So can I explain this for a quick second? This gun licensing, so LTC, licensing of firearms, is something that, I'll take my readers off, is something that the administrator, the supervisor, person in charge of LTCs would enter a log by themselves. So if they chose not to enter that they did that day, it's just not recorded. So oftentimes, who's ever in charge might just either forget or not do that they, write down that they had done that. Also, if it says firearms licensing, you could have 5 people, but only one event because you were doing it from 8 a.m. to noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually, they're open for about 3 hours at a time.
Yeah, I
So
was
there-
actually surprised at how few there were.
Yeah, so the
No,
number
it's-
is not reflective of the person.
Okay. Now, here we have follow-up investigation, which you talked about, but when I looked at this, I thought, follow-up investigation of what?
Yes.
But you talked, certainly that seems to happen with domestics. Does it happen with other things too?
Lots of different things, yes.
Then there was medical, which again, it's not a lot. And it's been fairly steady over the whole time that we're looking at. Now we get to motor vehicles. Motor vehicles started out in 2015 as 380, of which the majority were motor vehicle violation, I believe. And by 2019, we were up to 941. It's very clear that motor vehicles take up a vast amount of your time.
And it's also dependent upon how much an officer wants to be out there stopping people. And again, in 2020, it doesn't show.
2020, yeah, I should have put the top in. 2020 is 585.
So it's really dependent upon, and also it's dependent upon grants. I would have to look back to see if the department received the click it or ticket grant.
Yes, we did.
Because, okay, so if the department has the click it or ticket grant, then it's specified how many hours, how many stops, you must do a certain amount in a period of time.
Oh, we have.
So my guess would be 941, we had the click it or ticket maybe.
And it also, I mean, it was 2015 to 28 to 2017, sorry, there's no recording at all of the radar traffic enforcement. So I think that the fact that they weren't recording that activity.
Yeah, but that's not very many even farther on. But the one.
Oh,
that
it's
makes-
three,
and that's
yes, it is. It's 300, 185.
Radar and traffic is also a self-logged.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're right.
So that, the fact that those years are blank really skew the numbers.
So radar and
Unless
traffic are
it's somewhere else.
self-logged, meaning the officer puts that in there. They don't call dispatch, and they could, but typically they put that in that they are doing radar.
Okay, I don't need to belabor this and keep on going. I mean, you can see how I've
It's wonderful.
put these
This is
together.
Really
and
great.
And you can see how things sometimes are steady over the years and sometimes change a lot over the years. It's the last 2 pages
Okay.
that really needs, I mean, we can't take anything from this because I didn't know how to categorize these. But you can see there's a lot there that still needs to be added in under categories so that we can make more sense of them. And Kristen and I need to sit down and do this. So I have a question. Because we are both on this committee,
How does that work?
how do we do that?
Subcommittee, you post the meeting.
That's all. We just need to post it.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
just tell,
So what's
let
on
me
the
know when
agenda?
you're doing, and I'll give you
But
a
we have to,
Zoom
we have
link.
to have a 48-hour, we
Yeah,
have to do it 48 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Okay.
and I have to decide when we can do this.
Okay,
Yeah,
And-
and how you want to do it, if you want to do it in person or on Zoom.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, we have to do it in person.
Well, but the
Absolutely.
problem is, you do it in person, we still have to post on Zoom
Sure.
because we are still required to have
No,
remote.
no, I understand that, but she and I have to be able to sit down and,
Yeah,
chew
that's
through
fine.
this stuff, and you can't do that on Zoom.
And you can, if you can do it with
Well, you
one
can do
computer, with the
it-
two of you sitting with the computer so people can
It'll
watch.
be like this, the way you're
But not
talking
the
now,
Yeah,
we have to, the public has to be
yeah,
able to watch
that's,
you.
that's fine.
That's
I
all.
just meant that she and I can't do it on Zoom. That's all.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I have a
fine.
question on the next to last page.
Yes.
MVST, not on file.
Motor vehicle stop, I believe is what they wanted to do. I'm not sure, not on file. That's confusing to me. I can ask the supervisor at dispatch
Okay.
if he has knowledge of that.
Okay, just, because it's a larger. group.
Yes,
At
but
one
it's,
point,
but it's
we
only
were
in
saying
2015 and 2016
Yeah.
But it could be that missing, the
report.
missing numbers for
for something up there.
the
yeah.
motor vehicle up
Yeah.
above,
Right.
Yeah.
where it's blank,
Right.
the radar and traffic
Yeah.
enforcement. It's
And
probably
so it
goes there.
isn't perfect, because it starts with who records stuff, how they see it. But what it does give us is a sense, and I appreciate this a lot, your grouping and the time over change. And, I would almost want to write the different chiefs at the top, or just chief change, I don't care. who it
That's
was.
actually not a bad idea.
Yeah,
So-
see, I don't have that permission.
So
You're right,
one
that is-
thing, one thing I'll explain that I'm doing is I'm requiring the officers to log everything. So we have the ability to log it, we log it. So when we do get the data for 2021, you'll see that there is probably a lot more administrative because I log my administrative
There-
hours.
there is
You'll
quite-
see
yeah.
that there's a lot more community policing because I'm asking the officers to log specifics of what they do in those community policing events. And you'll see that there's more interactions and I'm asking them to log that. I'm asking them to log everything because as we're learning, it matters.
Yes, from my past experience in medical, in working in medical devices and working with the FDA, if you don't have it documented, it didn't happen.
Understood, yeah. Can I add maybe something that you might want to add to this list? I was looking at detail. We had a significant amount of police details with our wonderful Wi-Fi, our wonderful internet. So maybe pulling some of that in for, I don't know if you have that.
I don't think we can pull that because we do not require that other agencies call our dispatch in order to request a detail. So basically the way it happens is the agency calls me or the station and that comes back to me so that I can keep a rolling tally of whose turn it is.
Okay.
So I don't think that there's for the past years.
I just was curious. That's all, because there was a lot.
Yes,
during
oh,
that
there was a
time.
lot. I remember when it was going in on my road.
I can check to see if I can somehow pull that up, but I don't think there's going to be a way. Again, I require the officers to put in themselves into the system when they're out on a detail, but in the past, that wasn't a requirement.
Okay, that's fine.
But that doesn't show up as either police hours or police dollars. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because it was built to the project and all of that. It was just the time and accounting for.
For all intents and purposes, the officers use their own time
For that,
and they
yes.
get paid for that, yeah.
Yeah, and we needed so many details that we called in the sheriff's office and
right.
every, Leverett, New Salem, everybody, all the time for the full year were called in.
I
This
did have
is phenomenal.
just one question that's
Yes.
because I couldn't figure it out. What is repossession?
Okay, so repossession
Repo
is when
man.
somebody, so when somebody fails to pay their car payment,
It is the.
the
repo man,
company
okay.
will then call the repossession team. What happens is they then contact us to give us a heads up because how awful would it be if somebody thought their car was stolen and we didn't have knowledge that it was actually being repossessed? And then we are supposed to log that. Again, that's going to be a self-log. Officer's going to have to log that when the call comes in.
So they don't do the repo.
They don't, it's just
Informative.
Yeah, okay.
They occasionally will ask us to
To
come
show up.
stage in
Yeah.
the area just in case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Melissa, I'm just wondering how long this meeting's gonna go.
Well, let me check with people because we've had two very great reports and we still have a couple of things on our agenda which I flipped over. So the next one was Susie and then Mike Binsky. How does the group feel of continuing or giving time to stop so that these two other reports can have their full listening and questions?
When are we going to meet next?
And that's the next question. That's a very good question.
Because if it's only in another week or two, it might be better to leave these until the next meeting.
That's what I'm thinking. So I just wanted to poll the group to see what people thought. Are we at the point where we might like to put these on the next meeting and so that they're given, thank you for the ninth. The ninth. Yeah. So the 9th is the next meeting if we follow our every other Thursday. So I'm asking for opinions. Does anyone have one?
I'd rather put it off and really hear it in depth.
Yeah, that's what
I don't want to cut anyone off in time. I think that these next things are going to be extensive and I want to hear them in their entirety and not half and half.
Yeah, I think I'm on that. Anybody on Zoom have a feeling in that direction or other direction? Happy to listen in here.
I think I can just reference with what I did, because I'm not making any decisions. I'm just saying, I looked on the internet, this is what I found. And I think what has to come out of all of our activities is questions people have relative to this information. So we have a lot of information from Kristen, from Cheryl. You have some information from me. I can give you a little background on it. It's self-explanatory.
I looked at what you sent, and to me, as someone who has done case report forms, which are essentially surveys, for a different group, I found them both inadequate and not user-friendly.
So that's what I think you should come out of this. I'm not saying these are user-friendly or adequate. I'm showing you what kinds of options are out there from small to large. And then your response would be, I looked at these and I thought they were not user-friendly and inadequate. So, I don't know I guess we'll have a time to process those kind of comments. But
I think.
just want to report on what they work.
So I'm concerned that at about 3 hours, people's brains start to slip. And I think when we look at the surveys and talk about them and compare them, I'd like to be thorough about that and have a discussion about that.
Okay, then that is really important to me, that people look at them carefully and start coming up with responses.
Okay, that's an assignment. We'll give homework.
Yeah, so I would say one thing about, we can end the meeting, but we should know where we're going with this.
Yeah. What does everyone else think? Does whatever, I see a hand. Randy, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, hi. Let me see if I'm a little bit in the dark here, but I just would suggest that when you have your meeting, you put time frames for things, because you have a lot on the agenda. And when I run meetings, I try to say 30 minutes for this, an hour for that. Otherwise, you're going to run into this, and it's really not. It's not manageable. People can't do 3-hour meetings like that was being said. You need to have a schedule. That's my opinion.
You should join our select board, Randy. 4-hour meetings sometimes, but
Yeah, I think that's a failure of democracy, 4-hour meetings.
So usually on our select board meetings, we do time it out in some way. We hadn't with this one, being that we hadn't really gotten into the meat of anything yet, but you do make a very good suggestion, and I think we should think about that.
And also because we had to postpone the last, we knew we would go a little longer tonight.
I'd like to suggest
We-
we
can-
consider adjournment.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
before we go, can we just like summarize what we're going to be covering next meeting and just confirm that it's going to be the 9th of September?
Does the 9th of September 1st work for everybody?
Yes.
A little louder, Melissa.
Does the 9th of September work for everybody?
Yes.
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 Okay, so 9th of September, oh my gosh, it's already September.
Oh
So, I know, right? So the couple of things that I have on my list, and we have a homework assignment now, is that we will continue with the 2 sections we didn't get to tonight, which is Susie Mosier's examples for surveys, and Mike, the history of past attempts to look into the police departments with other towns. So those 2 will definitely be on there. Sergeant Burgess wanted to do a community policing option. And then Cheryl and Kristen will work on some more data stuff over the course of some time. And then the
Well,
homework. Go ahead.
Why don't we
I said
not put?
something. I didn't say
why
the
don't we
next
not
one.
put
I
it-
didn't say next one. It's over
No,
something.
no, what I'm just saying is not put anything,
Except those 2 things.
no, not put my reporting on anything on the next meeting.
No. Yeah, I was just summarizing
and
what
have
was
that
going forward. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
following.
We won't put that on the agenda. We'll just have it going forward.
Yeah.
And the homework assignment for all of us is to look at the surveys and get some questions together for Susie to inform either further research or more resources. So during her presentation, I'll follow the presentation. And I think that's probably good for that one. And with times on our agenda,
Yeah.
public comment on the agenda.
For next week, our next meeting, I would like people to look over the chart.
Can't hear you.
For the next meeting, I would like people to look over the charges and start figuring out what they are gonna work on. I don't want this to be just people look at what other people do. They need to get into it. And so there's seven things there. Some of the stuff we're talking about isn't even on there yet. So I feel like people need to start framing in their head what it is that they think this committee should investigate. My part on the survey question wasn't to propose anything. I was just trying to show what's out there. So people can raise questions by looking at that, not for me, but for where they think the survey needs to go and what models they think would be helpful, what criteria in it. And that's the thing that I noticed the most, is the criteria is different. And we have to begin to own our own impressions and start sharing them with the group.
Can we also put a time limit on the meeting next week, next meeting?
Was 5:30 okay?
5:30 is fine, but we need to, like Gordon said, we need to set either it's going to end at 7:30 or 7 o'clock or whatever.
7:30 as opposed to 8, 7:30 keeps
That's
people
fine.
fresher.
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
And I would like to say, if people came to this meeting, if we were all sitting.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
well, I would like to say that my preference is for people to come here and sit together. This technology stuff takes up time and energy. And so if it's a COVID concern, there's ways of dealing with that. But I believe sitting here takes the technology out of the picture, and you still have to have it Zoomed. I understand that. But I can tell you that talking together as a committee, I find it better if we were all here. That's my preference.
I second or third that.
I think COVID concerns are real, and that should be respected.
And that's why I have a mask on. And that's why we're sitting distant.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's okay to just say what someone's preference is. I don't think that's negating the seriousness of COVID. I agree. That's important as well.
So we can offer it as people can choose in person, and we always have to have it zoomed, so that we'll always have to have that portal open.
I just want to thank Melissa for bringing in, I want to show you. This is a smart TV, and then there's a camera mounted on top of that. These do not belong to the town. Melissa has put this together, and it's working better than our last attempt. So I just wanted to thank her, and
Thank you.
we'll keep trying to improve it. But I think for overall, people were able to hear tonight. Is that true?
Yes, as long as the computer was in front of whoever was speaking, it was excellent.
That's our passing.
All right, we will work to make sure we keep passing. Thank you, everyone.
The
Thank
conch
you all.
shell gets passed.
Yeah, right.
So,
Pass the
I make a
talking.
motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor, roll call, I'll start with Cheryl.
I
Mosher, aye.
Burgess, aye. Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Finsky,
Oh, sorry.
Zinsky, aye.
Johnson, I.
And
Mary
thank-
Jo? Okay, and Melody.
Mike and I spoke at the same time. Chartier, aye.
Zinsky, aye.
And
Thank you.
And I want to thank our guests, Hugh and Randy, for being here. We really appreciate it, and hope we can keep our conversation going with New Salem. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you. We're just kind of undertaking the same process, so we appreciate what you're doing.
Any feedback or questions, feel free to email us.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also like visitors.
Good night.
7 to 3. Good night.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. The community outline, I will do that.
Good night, everybody.
The one I had tonight. Yes, yeah.